As we move along through the Summer Report series, today we're going to take a look at the New York Rangers. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe as well. And check out the rest of our Summer Report series as we continue to go through all 31 NHL teams and what they look like heading into the 2019-2020 season. Let's take a look at the New York Rangers. So the New York Rangers, definitely a different team on the ice, but also a different team off the ice. Glenn Sather stepped down a couple of years ago. They bring in John Davidson as president of hockey ops. This is a very different looking team. They bring in David Quinn as head coach. There's definitely been some changes in the New York Rangers organization on the ice and off. And bringing in a guy named Kaapo Kakko at number 2, winning the draft lottery. Winning a lottery pick at number 2 was huge for the Rangers. And they seem to be going all in and ready to go this year. Taking a look at some of the, either pending free agents or still restricted free agents. Taking a look at Chris Kreider and Alexander Georgiev, who are unrestricted free agents this coming season, as well as Ryan Strome, who will be an restricted free agent next summer. Also, this summer, who are still unsigned, hopefully within the next couple of weeks before training camp, they get signed. But you have Brendan Lemieux, who they picked up in the Jacob Trouba trade, as well as Anthony DeAngelo. All right, so with that, let's take a look. They do have only $1 million to work with, so salary cap, it may be a little bit of a concern here. I think that's a big reason why they have talked about moving a guy like Kreider. First off, to allow the kids to have, more playing time. And you don't have to worry about, Kreider getting the minutes that he rightfully deserves. And also, he's going to be a free agent next year. You might as well try and get as much value for him now as you can, because once the season starts, the time starts ticking, and his value slowly gets less as we get to the trade deadline when he eventually becomes a rental. All right, so looking at the forwards for the New York Rangers, this is one of the best first lines in the NHL, and they have an interesting one, an interesting lineup here, which I don't necessarily agree with. So they have Artemi Panarin and Pavel Buchnevich on the wings with Mika Zibanejad down the middle. I would not be surprised if Kaapo Kakko ended up being on that right side with Panarin and Zibanejad. Buchnevich could maybe get in there, but I feel like they're going to give it to Kaapo Kakko. Looking at the second line, at least I would anyways. Looking at the second line, you have Chris Kreider and Kaapo Kakko or Buchnevich, whichever one, on the wings, and Ryan Strome down the middle. Strome had an unbelievable resurgence last year. It burns me inside that he's back in the Metropolitan Division. The Islanders purposely traded him to Western Canada to get him out of here, but fortunately he comes back like a boomerang right back to the New York area. Kreider on the final year of his contract, he's definitely going to be looking for a big season this year. He's going to want to get paid more than likely his last big contract before he's on the twilights of his career. Looking at that third line, very interesting and fairly young third line. You have Vladislav Namestnikov, who we've talked about as another guy they've really been looking to trade just to free some cap space and some roster space, and you'll see why as we continue. You have Philip Chytil down the middle, a former first-round pick. They're expecting a decent amount from Philip Chytil this season. He could end up jumping into that top 6 at points this year, and he's going to be a huge piece, for this team. Vitaly Kravtsov, who's been getting a lot of hype recently, throughout the summer, so hopefully he lives up to that hype. He's going to be another big piece, a young rookie. They're going to be expecting a lot from Kravtsov this year. All right, so this fourth line is crazy. I don't know what they're going to do with this team, but you have Lias Andersson, Brett Howden, who's down the middle, but you could have either of those down the middle, and Jesper Fast on the wing as well. So I don't see Andersson and Howden as fourth-line players. I don't see even Chytil or Kravtsov as third-line players. So the Rangers, again, this is why it makes sense to see why they looked at trying to trade Buchnevich. They inevitably re-signed him, so that's kind of done. Kreider, he's had issues with this team. He's had issues with Coach David Quinn. He's been benched and things like that, and that does not go well in the New York market. That gets noticed. So that's definitely been tough for Kreider, and you see Anderson, Howden, Chytil, Kravtsov. Those 4 guys could easily be in the top 6. They're going to have to limit at least some of them to the 3rd line, but there's no way I see these guys on the 4th line heading into the season. Very deep roster for the New York Rangers up front. Very young, though, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But now looking at the defense, you have Brady Shea and the newly acquired this summer, Jacob Trouba. They're expecting a lot from Trouba, and hopefully he lives up to it. I think Brady Shea is a good, left side pair. He's definitely not going to look as good if he was on another team. He wouldn't be as valuable because of the lack of defense on the Rangers. He definitely stands out as a pretty big piece. Then that second pair, you have the ever-aging Mark Stahl and the newly acquired, newly signed Adam Fox. So, that's an interesting pair there. Fox, he can move around. If you look at the third pair, you have Libor Hajek and Tony DeAngelo. I could see either of those guys jumping up on Adam Fox's, in Adam Fox's spot on the right side at different points in the season. You got to earn these spots with David Quinn, and he's not going to give these spots to the young players. So, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that. And then in goal, and this is what concerns me a little bit, and this very well could change before the end of training camp. You have Henrik Lundqvist and Alex Georgiev. Now, I think that's what the Rangers should go with going into the season. Some Ranger fans may want to see Igor Shesterkin come into the NHL right away. I'm sure Shesterkin wouldn't mind coming into the NHL right away. But we've seen it with Russian goaltenders specifically in the past. A perfect example I see is Ilya Samsonov, who came over, had a lot of hype around him, and he didn't do too well in the American Hockey League last year. That doesn't mean he won't do good in the NHL, but it definitely takes a little bit of an adjustment sometimes for goaltenders. I would expect Shesterkin to at least start the season in the American Hockey League, whether there's an injury to Lundqvist or Georgiev, and they maybe bring him up. I definitely see that happening at some point in the season. Do I have the Rangers in the playoffs? The million-dollar question. Do I have the Manhattan Blue Shirts in there? I have to say no. I don't think the Rangers make the playoffs. I'm actually impressed by the roster. They have a really good roster. A lot of youth, though, and I think that's the problem. They have a lot of youth, and they may come out of the gate really strong. I've probably said this before, but they come out of the gate really strong, and it's it's that leadership that usually helps you get further into the season and continue to grind out because the NHL really is a grind. You got to really pace yourself. We saw that with Tampa last season. We've seen it with other teams as well, where they come out of the gate really good and strong. Those young guys, they're full of energy and wanting to play well in the NHL and impress their management staff. But long term for the season, that may not end up working out for this team. So, really the only real veterans on this team are like Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider up front, and then you have Mark Stahl and maybe Brady Shea on the back end. Besides that, it's a fairly young group with the New York Rangers. Obviously, Henrik Lundqvist as well as a mentor, but there's only so much he can do as a goaltender. That's why we don't see captain goaltenders too often. I'm talking, the Canucks about Luongo, but nonetheless, let me know what you guys think of the New York Rangers. Am I off base for thinking the Rangers youth may end up, it's going to be another growing year for the Rangers? They're definitely going to be better than they were last year. It was difficult to watch Ranger games last year, and man, those tickets are not cheap, and they really weren't putting on the best product on the ice. So hopefully it was worth it because their team is going to look very good this season. Again, they kind of remind me of the Devils, where they were awful last year. They're going to get a lot better this year, but I don't know. It's going to be difficult to make the playoffs. in that Eastern Conference this year. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. Check out our Instagram as well at Goal Line Hockey. Check out the rest of our summer report series. All 31 NHL teams heading into the 2019-2020 season. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.